Hi there, my name is Lucy DeGray, and today we're going to talk about resumes, rep lists, and artist biographies, bios. A little bit about myself. I am a vocalist. I run and direct and founded the Resonant Bodies Festival, which is an annual festival of contemporary vocal music in New York City. We also have festivals in Australia. We'll have a summer program at Banff. We're having our first festival in Chicago. We'll have another festival in LA, so we're kind of expanding. I've been running the festival for 5 years. And yeah, so I present a lot of artists and I see a lot of, at least artist bios, not a lot of resumes and not a lot of rep lists. So I see a lot of these come through and I've learned to kind of edit them over the years. And I also ran a professional development course at Bard College graduate vocal arts program where I did my master's. And that's run by Dawn Upshaw, who's a wonderful soprano. And yeah, so I looked at a lot of rep lists and student materials then. So hopefully at the end of our little session today, you'll have an idea of how to start your one-page performance resume, and you'll have a beginning on a nice rep list, and you'll know a little bit about writing an artist bio. Okay, so here we go. So let's jump into resumes first. Down here. So I'm going from this website, Opera America, which you guys might know, the National Opera Center of America, Opera America Center. Anyway, it's downtown. And they have some free resources here. So we're just going to kind of go over them. You guys will know where they are. But they talk a lot about resumes. And so they tell you here what you should have, blah, blah, blah. And then they have a sample one. Sample rep list. This is a rep list that you would submit in an audition. And they also have a bad resume and a bad resume with notes. So we're going to look at all this stuff. The one thing I'll say that I don't agree with in here is having your address, your physical address, just because what I've seen with colleagues of mine is that sometimes your resume will get uploaded to the internet somewhere. And you don't just want everyone on the internet knowing where you live, especially since we're performers and someday you might be well known. And, especially if you're a lady, I think stalkers can be an issue. So I would just personally not put up your address, but definitely putting your cell phone number and your email address. And if you have a website, your website address. Those are fantastic. Okay, so let's begin here with the bad resume. And then we'll go into a few nice resumes. So this is again from Opera America. And let's just go over what they have here. So they want a photo over here in the upper right. Your photo can be wherever. If your photo is just looking straight out, it can be anywhere. If you're looking right or left, like in my photo, I think I'm looking to the right. You just want your face to be facing your material. So this is something from like basic kind of layout, like when I was the editor of my high school newspaper, I learned this, but that the photo should face the content. So that's just a little tip here. So we have I'm a singer, soprano, blah, 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 other info, separated these nice things. Those are important. I don't think we need to do, I don't personally do the bracket and the dash. I just do dot and dot. I think it looks cleaner, a little more 2017, a little less 1992. Upcoming roles, I don't know why anyone would do this, leave it blank, but apparently they've seen this, otherwise they wouldn't put it here, so leave it blank. And then, yeah, we begin with kind of sections. So you have, an opera section, a concert and oratorio, a recital section, awards, distinctions. You can put these in any sections you want. If, you don't have a bunch of operas and a bunch of other things, you can just say, stage experience. And you could even put straight plays in there. You could put musical theater, works in there, whatever you want to put, however it makes sense. You don't have to have, exactly 4 or 5 distinct sections. So we'll just go over this. Again, we're kind of looking towards a classical singer performance, one-page resume that you would do generally, for an opera audition. So that's why they're putting opera at the top. It's the most important. If you were just doing like a 9-to-5 resume, and let's look at one of these. I just pulled this off, Google image search, and this is fuzzy. But, up here you'd have something like career objectives, core competence, professional experience. So what we're seeing here in this one is, this is kind of professional experience up here. Yes. What we don't do in a performance resume is put these career objectives at the top. That's kind of yeah, again, more of like a 9 to 5 thing. But we do put education, and occasionally we put additional skills. And like here, this person has kind of their training, so we do also put our training. So it's kind of loosely based on a 9 to 5 resume. All right, so back to this one. So the first thing, obviously, you can see is we have a column, and oops, this little thing over here, and then a column and some junk, and then blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we do want things cleanly aligned. You want, clean line here, clean line here, clean line here. What usually happens when I see this kind of thing is that someone did not send me their resume as a PDF. It's really important to send as a PDF because if you send as a doc, it's going to get all messed up depending on, who's viewing it. Like I don't have Word, I only have Pages, and so it's going to mess up all your fonts and things like that. So always send your resume as a PDF. Great. Yes, alignment makes it easier for people to read. So again, the other point of this resume is that you're going to hand it out at an audition, and someone's going to look at it while you're singing. So they're going to be looking up, watching you, and then looking down occasionally to just get real quick information about you as a singer. So, if I was watching an audition and I saw this here and I saw, oh, she did Cunegonda, great, she was Adele, that's wonderful. And I get a sense of their voice, I get a sense of what kind of roles they've done. But I'm not trying to read someone's bio like sentences, because I can't really read sentences and, objectively pay attention to how you're singing at the same time. So again, that's why we have a resume. The other thing to point out is that these dates should be in reverse chronological order. So they're not really like an order of importance. They're just in, reverse chronological. So this 2013 should be up here and blah, blah, blah. It's totally okay to put things from a long time ago. Again, especially if you're starting out, you might have some high school experience. You might, who knows, maybe you're a child actor, child star. If those things were important, I would put them on there, depending how much stuff you have. Obviously, you want to put your most recent stuff. So yeah, what do they say here? Spelling is important. Yes, I do see a lot of spelling errors, especially in titles of roles and things like that. Yes. The one thing that this person is doing over here is that they're italicizing all of the works. So any major work title is going to be italicized. So that's an opera title, it could be a song cycle title, a movie, something like that. They're always, or a play title, those are always going to be in italics. Also, something to be careful about in Italian, like così fan tutte, this part doesn't get capitalized, whereas in German, most things are capitalized. Here, I don't know. I think that's correct, actually. Yeah, so anyway, so just something to be careful about. Blah, blah, blah. Let's keep going. So then, yeah, I agree with this, the star and the little hat for cover and the star for partial role. Some resumes ask specifically to see if you've done a role, or some people will kind of put their scene experience in with their opera stuff, and they'll put a star for, I did a scene of this character. And that's okay. It just, I am always like, oh, what's that star? And then I go back here, and then it takes time away from me watching you sing. So, you could just have you could have a separate section that says scene experience, and you could put scenes on there if you have 4 or 5 of those. Yeah, all right. Then concert/oratorio/recital. Yes, this person says unless it was a professional gig, no need to list general recitals. But, I do think, again, depending how much experience you have, if you're auditioning for a paid opera, yeah, maybe don't put your senior and junior recital here. But if you're auditioning for a school thing, or if you're, going to do audition for graduate school, yeah, you might want to list these. Though this doesn't really tell us much. It just says, like, she performed or he performed. Good, good, good. Again, this is all sloppy. Blah, blah, blah. Awards, distinctions. This person says, while these are useful early in your career, start removing them ASAP. I think because ideally your opera resume is more like opera roles, like just like all of them right there. But again, if you're doing grad school or something like that, and you made, if you were in the Met semifinals, like obviously you'd want to put something like that there. But maybe, like Anywhere High School Idol runner-up, maybe not so important. Again, you always have to tailor your resume towards what you're applying for. So if you're doing opera, then you want to highlight your opera experience on top. If you're doing musical theater, you want to put other things up here. You might want to put any dance experience somewhere on here, something that's going to be relevant to what you're doing. So you're not necessarily just going to have one resume that's going to, fit all sizes. I have resumes sometimes that I have to submit for fellowships and things like that, and they want something a little more comprehensive. Sometimes they even want a CV. And a CV is different from a resume. It goes in chronological order, not reverse chronological order. It's more all-encompassing of everything you did, not just your performing. So again, just something to keep in mind. This person complains here, this font is really small. Avoid going smaller than 10 points. I agree. Be careful. And then avoid boxed format. Yeah, that's ugly. We don't need to do the boxes. You can make text boxes, but maybe don't do a table here. Or if you do a table, you can remove the lines on the table, which is good. I would also, something that I like to see when people list, just a bunch of teachers, is that they're in alphabetical order, usually by last name. Otherwise, it kind of looks like, oh, this person was the most important person, and this person was second most and third most, and yeah, that person. Um, you know, uh, you don't want to insult anyone, and like if these people are good enough to put on your resume, then you want to honor them with kind of equal footing. So just put them in alphabetical order. Not as useful as listing directors and coaches who have worked with you. Yeah, I agree. Master classes, it's like, can be important, but also, there's enough space in here that you could move this over, you could move this over and have, another column for directors and even another column for coaches if you want to go crazy. Yes, keep it on one page, don't have anything that spills over. And then other skills, yeah, this is an area where you're going to want to tailor it to what you're auditioning for. So if you're auditioning for an opera, then dance and, Italian and German are good, but, a valid New York State driver's license is not really relevant. So just keep it there. Remember that you're not really, unless you truly are conversational in like 6 languages, don't just put all the languages that you ever took a 101 class in. Because you never know when someone will bust out in conversational Italian with you at your audition just to mess with you. You just got to be careful. You don't know who's on the other side of the table sometimes. Okay, cool. So that is the bad resume. Let's go now to what they call a good resume. So this is Marguerite Musician Mezzo. Very cute. Yes, it gives their website, their email, and their phone number. Notice that they don't put a physical address, which I think is great because you don't know where this is going to end up on the internet. Here's a picture. She's, her body is kind of facing her material, so that's good. Here she's split it into upcoming roles. And again, you can see, well, this is in a reverse chronological order. I guess this is in upcoming order. And then here it's in reverse chronological order. All of the roles, these are all italicized in the right way. This is a contemporary piece, so they also put the composer here, Goluboff, Hegyi, and ones that Falstaff, Salieri, not the other one, the Verdi. So, this is good to kind of make sure people know what it is. If it's not something that's really well known and really kind of in the standard repertoire, then you might want to put these kinds of markings. I do that in my resume, which I'll show you in a second. Scenes and covers, concert and oratorio, great. She's had a great career. She's sung with the New York Phil, amazing. Training and education, excellent. Conductors, directors, coaches, composers. I also put that on mine. Related skills. Great. All right. So again, you can download this from Opera America. You can kind of steal that format. It's a good one. Let's look at a couple more resumes. I'm going to scooch this over a little bit. Here we go. So I just whited out this person's name. Someone, soprano, email address, cell phone, website. That's great. Future engagements, opera, concert, awards and honors, training programs in education, teachers, conductors, coaches, directors. So whatever it is that you want to highlight here. This is kind of your name dropping section right here at the bottom. So anyone that you think the panel people auditioning you are going to know, people who are really important to you. I often have foreign students who list people, and again, the point of this little section is not to just say that you had coaches and conductors, but to say, to name drop, to let people know. It's also kind of like a little reference list. So if I know Deb Birnbaum and I want to know what you were like as a student, I might call her up and say, hey, this person just auditioned for me. So just know that these people are going to kind of serve as your mini references as well. So, only put people who you would trust to give you a somewhat good reference. Great. I can send this along to you as well, so you can kind of have this as a format. I'll show you mine, even though my headshot, when I made it into a PDF, doesn't quite look right, but Lucy DeGray, mezzo soprano, I'm looking at my stuff in Notes Fuzzy, got it. So opera, I do only contemporary music, and I do a lot of world premieres, so these roles don't really look that great. Voice 1, even though that's like the only role in this opera. So, it's just kind of I have a funny resume, but I just want to show you one that's a little different. So this is the title, The Force of Things / composer. And so I'm just keeping the same format, title of work, composer. It gets a little crowded in here, but there's kind of no better way to do it. This is a super long opera title. You said, he said, she said. So I had to kind of squish the letters here together. That's something that you can do if you absolutely have to. It's kind of like making the text smaller. It's not really recommended, but it works. And here, again, I'm just trying to show what's most important. I'm name dropping. Like, people wouldn't know the directors of these shows. They wouldn't know the conductors. And often these shows never had directors and conductors. If they usually had one or the other. And so I don't have that info here, but I do have the venue and, anyone else it was kind of affiliated with, and it's in reverse chronological order here. I think sometimes it's important to include like big recitals, big solo recitals, especially if they were presented by someone in particular, soloist, with different ensembles. Festivals, education, and here I just put mentors because I don't really want to list my voice teachers at this point in time. And that can kind of be, it's like a double-edged sword. Like, if you're doing a competition, some judge on the competition may love that teacher, and another judge on the competition thinks that, all so-and-so's students sound like X, and it can kind of make them bias in a weird way against what you're doing. So you kind of have to be careful with listing voice teachers, but these are actually mentors of mine, conductors, directors, and composers that I've worked with really closely. And then I put star for world premiere. And then on the bottom part, I have my bio. I just usually include both to get people. I think that my bio actually sounds a lot better, and my resume makes zero sense. So my bio kind of gives it some context. All right, so those are resumes. So your assignment is to make a one-page performance resume, and you can gear it towards whatever you want. If you want to gear it towards opera or just stage experience or classical vocal performance experience, whatever you want, but you can kind of put whatever it is you want to focus on in those top two groups. And as far as fonts and all of that, you just want to make it easy to read, simple. Pick a font you like, use the same fonts in all of your materials so you have kind of like a little style, a little look, and just stick with it. Don't make it smaller than 10 points, and you're good. All right. So next thing we're going to talk about is repertoire lists. So the first kind of repertoire list that you need is for an actual audition where you're just going to list the repertoire that you're presenting. They're going to ask for 5 or 6 arias or whatever, and you're going to list them. So, current repertoire or things that they can choose to hear today at your audition. The title of the aria, and when you have a recitative with then the aria coming after it, you do this ... and then you do the title of the work and then the composer. And since these are all pretty well-known composers, you can just get away with for last name, but you could do Purcell, comma, Henry, or Purcell, depending how you want to say it. Yeah, okay, so this is like a short rep list. And again, you're just going to keep that same kind of like heading here at the top. For a repertoire list, the other way that you're going to use a repertoire list is for like a summer program or a grad school or a young artist program. And what they want to see is all the repertoire that you've done. They don't just want to see like an old use of the repertoire list, like for a professional singer would be like, these are the things I have on hand that you can hire me to sing. And some singers you'll see that actually on their website, that they will have a bunch of repertoire that they want to be hired to do, and that's why they're putting it on their website. But more likely for you at this stage, you're just going to have a repertoire list to give people an idea of what you've studied, how many languages you've sung in, what's like the difficulty of the music that you're doing, what's kind of the range of the music that you're doing, and so on. And it's totally fine to be wherever you are. It's not supposed to be longer. It's not supposed to be this or that. Some people end up taking certain repertoire off their list after a while because they just don't sing it anymore, and they don't really even want anyone to know that they sang it. They like, people changing from tenor to baritone or baritone to tenor or mezzo to soprano, whatever. So, get advice on your repertoire list, get enough advice that you can make your own decision. Ultimately, it's up to you. And some repertoire lists will ask to see which pieces you have performed and which ones you've just studied. So that's another thing. I'm going to show you right now my repertoire list that I personally keep, because often I'm asked to curate concerts to pick repertoire, or someone will say like, hey, we have this flutist or this harpist who can do this concert. What repertoire do you know for flute and harp? So I keep this giant spreadsheet of repertoire, and this is really just for me. I don't send this out. Maybe I've sent out like part of this list once, but this is really just for me to keep track of all the pieces I know, because I like to use them when I program. So I've just arranged this by alphabetical order in composers. But we have the title of the piece over here, the larger work. If there is no larger work, it's just blank. The composer, the type of song. Again, this is for me just in my spreadsheet nerdiness to sort it. So I have opera arias, I have oratorio arias, I might have a chant, that's like a really specific kind of thing, a choral piece that I want to put on here, multi-voice and ensemble, multi-voice with flute. That's very particular kind of piece, but you never know. Musical theater, opera, like these are roles I put over here, etc. So this is just for my own kind of categorization. Language, duration, date of composition, composer dates, so their birth and death dates. The era, this is kind of just a different way of organizing this information. Is it classical, Baroque, 20th century? Is it truly contemporary? Those are distinctive for me, distinctive categories. Not every single piece in here gets gets each box filled in. And then I mark if it was a world premiere, since I do a lot of contemporary music, I keep track of that, and the poet and librettist, because you guys, you just, sometimes you're asked to do an all Emily Dickinson concert, and you want to list all your repertoire here, and maybe someone wants all female poets, on a concert, and so you can just kind of keep track of those people here. So I recommend starting a repertoire list. Also, what I have on here is a want to learn list. So these are pieces that I want to be on my rep list. Title, larger work, era, poet, links so I can listen to them, so I can remember what the piece is, especially if I want to send them to other people. So I have that as well. So I recommend having this. Also, it's good if you're making a concert program booklet and you need to have all this information, and then every time you're doing the song, you're not having to look up the year that it was written in and what song cycle is actually from and how do I list a song cycle, blah, blah, blah. So that's repertoire lists. So let's look at some repertoire lists of past students of mine whose names I've taken out. This one I think is my favorite because it's very complete, and if you look at this, you know that I like completeness. So you would put your name and your voice type or whatever. You put your little heading up here with your picture and your website and all that stuff. So arias, and I like that this person uses these colors. You get the big sections, and then she's giving you, the little sections again, and they're kind of the same over and over, but they're a little different. Roll and song cycle here, so it's good that they are reiterating this stuff. So arias, and now look at this. She's got the quotes around the aria title, which is correct. You should always quote song titles, aria titles. You put quotes around these, and then the title, like the big title that it's from, is in italics, but you don't put italics for an aria title or a song title, unless, again, the song is like a huge song and it's like a major work, like Il Tramonto. Cool. Benjamin Britten. I would probably prefer that this is a last name because, again, I just want to scan this and see last names, and here I have to kind of like hunt and go, oh, Handel. Oh, okay. But this is in really, really good order. And it seems like they've put this in alphabetical order, which I also think is great. Just have some kind of order and just don't have it be random. Cool. Musical theater, aria, roll, musical, blah, blah, blah. We get it. Yeah, so I really love this one. I think she did an awesome job. I recommend this. Okay, this might be a little too small of a font. Anyway, pretty good. Let's look at one more, maybe two more, so you guys can get an idea. This one, it doesn't have as much information. It doesn't have years and all that stuff, but it looks nice. You put your name here. Art songs, English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, opera and oratorio. And I think what I'm always looking for in a rep list is like how little space you can take up. So if you look again at this one, it's like really clear. She can fit a lot of information here. In this one, we're kind of like, there's all this white space around here. So you want to figure out, go into your formatting brain and figure out how to take away that white space so that you're just making use of it, and also so that our eye knows where to go to find the information. Vocal chamber music. This is important. Not all of our songs are voice and piano. And if that's a big part of what you do, then you just definitely want to make like a separate section for it. So that's that. These should be, italicized. That's a major work. Voix rec should be italicized. Things like that. All right, but you get the idea. Let's see, there's one more. So-and-so soprano, their email, their phone number. This is good. She's got the quotes here. She doesn't have like the subheadings here, like title, role, opera, composer, but that's okay. We get the idea because it's consistent. And then this person did complete song cycles, which I think is also nice. I would like to see under here also, individual songs and then listed by language. But this gives us a good idea of what she's done and what she wants to do. Okay? So these are some examples of repertoire lists. Yay! Let's go on to, I think we've covered all that stuff, yeah? Yes, let's go on to bio writing. So your bio, and I want you guys to write, so I want you to do a rep list for the repertoire that you've learned thus far that you want to kind of keep track of. It doesn't have to be every single song you ever learned since you were 8 years old, but definitely the repertoire that you've learned in college, especially if it's been significant to you. So you can either make a repertoire list like this one or any of these other ones, or you can make a spreadsheet. But if you bring that to our class, then I can take a look at that. Cool. Okay, anyway, back to artist biographies. So your artist bio is the story of you, and you get to decide how you tell it, which is cool. This is something that's going to go either in a program booklet, or it's going to go in your website, or wherever. You do want to tailor it to your audience. So if it's on your website, that's an audience that really wants to know about you and your personal story and all of that. If it's in a program booklet, usually there's like a word limit, 100 words, 50 words, 75 words, 300 words, whatever it is. And you're going to want to tailor it for that specific performance. So if you're doing an opera, then you're going to want to basically just put in your opera experience in the bio. And, we don't need to hear all about how you played cello when you were 10 and things like that, unless that's the story that you want to tell. If you're a good writer, then have your personal voice come through. And if you're a little worried about your writing, I don't think I'm a great writer by any means. You can make it sound a little more professional, and, it'll get the job done. It'll be good. So yeah, let's just go over some kind of artist bio tips. And where can you find samples of bios? They're all over the internet. Just, Google search your voice type and you will find hundreds and hundreds of them. I will say that the ones for professionals like Renee Fleming or, someone of that level, they're written by a manager, and, they're actually not that well written sometimes. So I wouldn't necessarily take my cues from like the big, big, big stars. So try to find people who are your colleagues, within 5 or 10 years of you, and see what they're writing, and see what you like. I think there are some kind of conventions that we all play into that we don't need to play into. So sometimes I'll read people's bios and I'm just like, why are they fluffing this up? Like, why isn't it just more factual? And I would just really advise you to steer clear of feeling the need to fluff anything up. Just be who you are at the stage that you're at, with the things that you've done, and you don't, need to include kind of overblown statements and things like that, or kind of obscuring information to make something look better or anything like that. Okay? All right. So I put together this list of biography writing tips. Again, I can send this to you, but I just thought we'd kind of go through this. In class, again, I want you to write a 150 word to 300 word bio. And bring it to class, and we can kind of workshop some there. But if you follow these tips, you'll be in good shape. And if you make a resume, then you kind of have a list of all the things that you've done, and you can kind of choose from that and write your bio. So I think doing the resume first and then writing the bio is a good order to go in. All right. General format. Don't me-go your reader. Make my eyes glaze over. Yeah. So your bio isn't just a prose version of your resume. Your lists in one sentence should have no more than 3 items. So sometimes people will say, her festival appearances include this festival, this festival, this festival. And like after 4 festivals, you're just like, your eyes are glazing over. So that's you're me-going your reader. So don't me-go. 3 things. And if you want to include more than 3 things, have a different sentence and say something else about, group 3 other things together in a different way. Long lists should be separated by semicolons. So I'll just read this. Past theater credits include Mrs. Watson in Great Lakes Theater production of Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, semicolon. Kathy in Romberg's The Student Prince at the blah blah blah, semicolon. And Eileen in Bernstein's One with blah blah blah, period. So if we just did those separated by commas, we would kind of, like the semicolon tells you basically to refer back to this first part. Past theater credits include. And then we know that we're going to get a long list when we have the semicolons here. So it's just kind of helping your reader keep track of the information. And then other basic info, tell your bio story in some kind of logical order, either by season, where you're starting with current season, you're doing your most recent season, last season, and then you're doing previous season highlights. So that's a common organization format. Or you can organize it by types of work. So your first paragraph is going to be for opera, your second one for any concert work, your third one for recital work, whatever. That's assuming that you have a 5-paragraph long bio. You can just have your first couple sentences be about opera and your second sentences be about this thing. But just make sure that you're grouping information together. You're not jumping all over. Like, first she was in this opera, and then she was in this other thing, and then she did this festival, and then she did this other opera, right? Like, just put all the opera stuff together if you're going to do it in that way, unless you're going to do it again in a logical or chronological order. And even then, within the last season, you're going to want to put the operas together. She did these 3 operas, and she did these 4 performances. Okay. All right, grammar. There's lots of grammar stuff, so you're going to want to refer back to this as you're writing. In general, try to avoid commas. Helen Smith, soprano, is a New York-based singer and actor. Instead, just write, soprano Helen Smith is a New York-based singer and actor. Okay? Certain phrases like New York City-based soprano need to be hyphenated because this is all one adjective, right? Right? Or noun? I don't know, you guys. It's all one thing. New Jersey-based, that's going to be in hyphens. If you want to look at the rules, you can go to this website, grammarbook.com/punctuation/hyphens.asp. If you're doing a world premiere, remember it's première with an E at the end, and it's not premiere with no E because that would mean like the best, like the premier restaurant, the premier steakhouse or something. That's not going to have an E at the end, but world premiere, as in the first time a piece is ever heard, it was with an E. Titles of works are italicized. He was the tenor soloist in Bach's Magnificat. Other concert highlights include blah, 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 Steve Reich's music for 18 musicians and Stravinsky's Pribautki. Okay? But generic titles, symphonies, string quartets, or numbered titles are not italicized. He also worked with Madison Bach musicians, singing Bach's BWV 61 and 151 as the bass soloist. Okay. If you're using a quote, the publication's name is italicized. De Grey, who is, quote, everywhere new music is being sung, unquote, New York Classical Review, regularly premieres new vocal works and operas. Listing your education. Latin phrases like cum laude are italicized. So, summa cum laude, pretty much anything that's in a foreign language, if you're writing in English and you're just kind of dropping it in, should be italicized, unless it's like a word that we've just put into our language, like naive or something, which is, French, but it's English now. It's easier to write your degree as such. She graduated from Wheaton College in 2016, BM, so Bachelor's in Music. You can also put your future year of graduation. So she's studying at Wheaton College, and then in parentheses, BM 2019 or something, or BM apostrophe 19, something like that. So because it's a date in the future, we realize that it's not completed yet, but we know your completion date and we know the degree that you're going for. You say bachelor's in music with a vocal performance, or whatever. I think it's nice to just keep that short because that can get real wordy, and even though you do want to have 150 words and you may feel like you're struggling to make 150 words, don't just put filler in it. Okay. So rather than writing it out like this, though there's nothing technically wrong with this, he graduated cum laude with a BM in vocal performance from Azusa Pacific University in 2016. This is much shorter, right? So other thing, I don't really like the word pursue in regards to a degree because it implies a chase. Quote, currently pursuing his master's degree in vocal performance. So you can say your expected year of graduation by simply writing it like this. Yes, then you just avoid the word pursue at all by just putting your year of graduation. All right. Phrases and vocabulary to avoid. So I'll just preface this with saying these are all my opinions, and people are going to have plenty of other opinions, and but from reading lots and lots of bios, these are my opinions. Okay. So you never work under a conductor, and you especially do not work under the baton of a conductor, but you can work with conductors. I also don't think that you work under teachers, or you are at the tutelage of so-and-so. I just think that, again, those make you sound less than, and we want to make you sound like an artist, not like a baby or like a child. And just because you're a student doesn't mean that you're not an artist. But I just don't believe that you work under anyone. So, especially given the light of recent conductors' actions, I would just put yourself, on an equal footing with them. And yeah, all right. I have a lot of thoughts about that. We can talk about that in class. Be wary of the term equally at home in. A lot of people, again, this is one of these phrases that a lot of people throw in, and I rarely see someone who's equally at home in all the things that they're describing, and I just think this makes you sound, again, like overblown. So don't let anyone write that about you, and don't write that about yourself. Another phrase that I really don't like, quickly becoming one of the most sought-after young so-and-sos. Absolutely off limits. We talked about the word tutelage. Again, you work with teachers, etc. So yeah, sometimes I just skip mentioning teachers altogether unless it's someone who's had a significant influence on your artistry, or you went to a school specifically to study with so-and-so, or they have an amazing name that you need to drop. Like, I studied with Maria Callas, like I would totally put that in my bio no matter how old I was. And I'd have to be pretty old to put that in a bio by now. But if it's someone that you really want to recognize in that way, like Dawn Upshaw is a big mentor for me, and I try to find a way to put her name in my bio if it's a longer version, because she's been a really important part of who I am as an artist. But I would still never say that I worked under her or that I was under her tutelage, unless she babysat me, and she never has, as far as I know. Yeah. For young singers, to my ear, the word engagement should only be used if it's a paid contracted work. So people use engagements to mean that, they're being hired by different people, kind of makes you sound more like a product, and this is kind of, again, like managerial speak. So just know that if you're putting that in, it makes it sound like you have management. It can be misleading, just so that you know that that's how, it sounds to my ear as someone who works in the industry. This is specifically for new works, saying that you created the role of so-and-so if you just premiered it. I think since I'm married to a composer, I have a pretty strong view on who's creating roles, and unless you are really working with the composer from a very early stage, or the composer specifically writing it for your voice, then I don't really think that you're creating the role. So just use that sparingly if you ever use it, and I hope you do get to use it. It's just some other notes on name dropping, since, again, a bio is very much about name dropping. If you want to name drop, you can do it this way. Also had the opportunity to work with stage director Mary Birnbaum, Juilliard, right? So why do we care about Mary Birnbaum? Because of Juilliard, because it's nice to throw Juilliard in there. Why not? When possible, mention composers by name. Extremely famous ones like Mozart, Handel, and Bach can be referred to by last name. Others should get their full names. Stick with one way of referring to yourself throughout your bio. I prefer last name. This spring, Burgos will be singing the role of Paquette in semi-staged concert version of Bernstein's Candide. So some people prefer their first name. That's fine. Some people prefer Miss So-and-so, Miss Burgos, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Smith. Whatever you do, just keep it consistent. I prefer last name, just, again, it's kind of more gender neutral. It's not calling you Miss or like Madame or something. I think that's a little more 2017, but you can do whatever you want. If you don't like your last name, you don't like how it sounds, you can just say your first name. And just be careful starting every sentence with, Lucy did that, Lucy did this, or starting every sentence, she did this, she did that. So try to mix up how you're starting your sentences, the sentence structure, so that they don't all start with she did this, then she did this, then she did this, right? Don't me-go your reader. Okay, so those are my basic artist biography writing tips, and you can read my biography at lucydegray.com. And thanks! Looking forward to seeing you, and if you have any questions, you can write me an email, lucydegray@gmail.com. Looking forward. Bye.